So thank you for joining today. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy startup lives to join us to talk about this remote world that we live in now. So as you can see, I am at my house. Deonica is at her house. You'll probably see my children wandering in and out of this room, so I apologize in advance for that. Before we get started, I've got a couple housekeeping items. We are going to be taking questions throughout this webinar. So please, at the bottom of the screen, there's a Q&A button, and you can ask your questions there, and I will be sure to politely interrupt Deonica and Laura to ask your question, but we're also going to be reserving time at the end for questions. There's also a chat button down at the bottom of your screen, and I will be taking questions there, as well as trying to help with any technical issues you might be having. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Deonica Gaston. She is a new member of Rev1's team and has been doing most of her onboarding to Rev1 remotely. So we're really grateful for you to be here, Deonica, and thank you for taking the time to speak with us today.
No, of course. I'm so glad, that I'm super excited and happy to be a part of the Rev1 team. And I'm also excited just to be here with you guys today and to be able to talk about this new world that we're in from a work from home basis. So, I think I'm going to cover the aspect of onboarding. But just as Heather said, I'm Director of Talent here at Rev1. I have over 15 years of talent acquisition and recruiting experience, including HR. And being that my onboarding experience has been remote, I'm the perfect person to talk about onboarding from a remote standpoint. So Heather, to go ahead and just discuss this, and then any questions come up?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to start the presentation now.
Okay. All right, perfect. So, with the new employee onboarding from a remote standpoint, the onboarding is the ongoing process of integrating a new employee with the company and its culture, as well as providing tools and information needed to become a productive member of the team. So that's the definition of onboarding, period. Rather it's remote or rather it's in brick and mortar or they're in-house with you, that is onboarding. So when you're onboarding new employees, you really want to, roll out the red carpet. The way I think of it is you should treat every employee, no matter the level, no matter what position, as if they are the VP of whomever, the VP or the president of the company, just joining the company. So roll out the red carpet and do whatever you can to, get the buy-in early. Heather, you can go to the next. Perfect. So, the different phases of onboarding, 0 to 3 months. So obviously the first day is crucial, right? You want that new employee to know that we are so happy to have you. We are excited. We hired you for this reason. And from a remote standpoint, you almost have to be a little bit more excited. You really want them to feel welcomed, and you really want them to know that you didn't just choose them, you chose them for a reason. So you want to establish their place in the company itself. You want to, make the contributions meaningful, build relationships with colleagues. So you want to make sure that they are introduced to everybody, have a team Zoom meeting or GoToMeet or whatever, video conferencing platform that you're utilizing. You want to make sure that the team is on board, that they've met them, they can put a face to the name. And even explaining what each person does in introductions is definitely important. And so that should be ongoing, especially from 0 to 3 months. And then you have the initial development from, phase from 3 to 24 months, where you're looking for ways to, the new hire is looking for ways to improve their skills. They're trying to be as impactful as possible. So they want to know, how can I contribute? And so letting them know how they can contribute and what your expectations are, setting those expectations early on, and make an impact. Help the team, explain to them what I need from you as a new hire, as a person being on our team. This is what I need from you. And then 24 months and beyond, they're looking for ongoing development. So you want to invest in your team. You want to invest in this new hire, letting them know that you support their career growth in whatever their needs are. Thank you. So, traditional versus virtual. So traditional, your new hire comes in, you get a call, Jane Doe is at the front desk. She's waiting. Oh, my new hire is here. You have the desk already prepared. Her workstation is already, it has swag on it. It has a welcome card. They feel really welcome. The first day you show them where the bathrooms are, the break rooms. They meet people face to face. They can feel the culture. They can see the culture. So that's from a traditional aspect. From a remote standpoint, not so much, right? So you really have to kind of pour it on a little bit more. So you want to make sure that the new hire has their laptop. That's probably the most important thing, and that their workspace is set up to where they can be productive. Any technical issues, you want to make sure you got IT, scheduled to spend time with them the first day, making sure that everything is working okay, that they've got their passwords, their user names, all of that is squared away. And then, again, meeting with the team over a video conferencing, Zoom, or whatever platform you're utilizing. It's important to have the team know, hey, our new person to the team is here and they started today. Let's welcome them. You want to go over an org chart. They need to understand who is what and where, right? And just really making them feel welcome and feel part of the team. Getting that buy-in early on is so important. So, I think, these are the vast differences between traditional and remote. And again, the more touch bases that you have with that new hire, especially that first 2-3 weeks, setting expectations early on, I think that you really can gain, you can really start that onboarding off to a great start, gaining that buy-in and the new hire feeling welcome. So I really think those are the vast differences. And as long as you follow some sort of, onboarding checklist, you should be good to go.
Thanks, Giannica. And we actually received a question that I want to answer for everyone attending. We are going to send out the video of this. We are recording, but we also had a question about getting the slides. So I will make sure to send those as well. So, and moving on.
So the remote onboarding best practices, again, just to reiterate, you want to, I think, right, for me, I would want to send a care package early on. Let's send some swag, let's send some logo wear, and a welcome card. You want them to know a week before, at least they start, we really appreciate you, we can't wait for you to start. I think that's impressive, and I think the new hire would be like, oh my gosh, they're ready for me, and look at this great gift. You want to include, like I said, swag, a card. You want to ensure that the new hire has everything that they need to be successful. So touching base with them prior to the first day, you want to ease any kind of anxieties, and you want to make sure that you're ready for them, that everything is set up, and you just want to make sure that their first day will go up, will start in a great way. Again, create that onboarding checklist. You want to make sure, we're human, we're going to forget. There's no telling what other things that you're dealing with that day. So you want to make sure that you have a checklist that you can check things off, you're not forgetting anything. And then going over the 30, 60, 90-day action plan will help your new hire understand the expectations, not just for today, not just for this month, but ongoing. That way they can have a reference point. They can go back and know, okay, this is what's expected of me. I should know this by this time, and it helps them to really kind of ease that anxiety, and that they know that they're on the right course, they're on the right track. again, they should be included in all new hire meetings, or I'm sorry, all team meetings, right? So make sure that person is integrated with within all of the team meetings, so that they can become, acclimated into what your team is working on and how they can become impactful and add to the team as well. You want to give as much, so when someone is starting and they're being invited into a meeting, they have no clue what this meeting is about. So maybe being able to prepare them ahead of time and give them some insight as to, okay, these are the topics we're talking about. This is the agenda. Let me go through each one of these so that you can kind of catch on a little bit quicker as to what we're discussing right now. And then again, touch points throughout the day. Set expectations at the beginning of the day. And then at the end of the day, you want to follow up. Hey, how was your day? Did you understand anything? Do you have any questions? I think that's extremely impactful and will help that new hire really know, they can jot down their questions, and it really helps to get them, acclimated and know that, hey, I can trust her, or I can trust my manager. They're supportive of me. And then, if possible, now I know we're in the world of the pandemic and we're still in the middle of it, but if possible, any meetings that can be held on site will also be impactful, right? That way they get to see the environment that they would have been working in, or that they may come and spend time on. So it would really be helpful, and to really get that buy-in if they are able to see, the office, to see what it looks like, to see the team face to face. So I think those are really the best practices to really get that new hire acclimated, get the buy-in right away, and really set them off to a great start.
Great, thanks, Deannica. We're just flying through this presentation. So if anyone has questions as we're going through, please send them into the Q&A down at the bottom, or message just me if you don't want me calling your name out. And Deannica, I actually have a question for you. Yeah. As you said, you've had to onboard remotely, and I'm sure it was virtually wonderful, but can you give some anecdotes about things that maybe made it easier, or you would recommend for other people to do when, as an employee, from that perspective?
I would say the biggest thing that I had to do was just adjust, right? And the biggest adjustment, so the one thing that really kind of I hated happening was we would be in meetings and my internet wasn't working as well, because everybody's working from home, and it just was, the Wi-Fi was so slow, and we would have a Zoom meeting and individuals would be talking, and it would just be going in and out, and I could hear like every other syllable, and I was like, oh my God, how am I gonna know what they're asking me to do? And so I did have to up my my Wi-Fi and just get added support, so that way I felt confident going into meetings. So that was the one thing that I really had to adjust to. I will say though that, I think, so I worked remote, 100% remote in the past, and we didn't utilize video conferencing at all. So I think going forward this time, it is still very helpful, even though we're working remote, that I'm able to see your face, Heather. I'm able to see your expression. You're able to see me. So from a new hire standpoint, I can still put a face with the name, and I can still remember you. Like, oh yeah, I know that's Heather, And so that was extremely important and helpful to me, that I can still, put a face with the name and get really acquainted with my team. So I think, those were the one things that were very helpful for me. And with my team, everybody is so kind and so nice, and so they were all everyone is very like, how are you doing? I know you had, you're remote, and everybody was extremely supportive and would explain anything that I needed, or that I had questions about. So I think having a supportive team is extremely helpful. So, I think everybody on the team has their strengths, and as long as they know what their strengths are, they can implement that to the new hire. They can say, hey, I need you to be in charge of this, or I need you to do that. And that's just one way to kind of corral the team around this new hire and help make them feel welcome.
Well, I think that's a great segue into the next topic that we're discussing, which is building that culture virtually. So as you mentioned that Rev1 has different team members that have been really supportive of you, as we hope we all are. And I know that we're so grateful for you joining the team, and bringing your perspective and all your new ideas. It's been really wonderful. But that's a piece of the Rev1 culture. And so now we've got Laura Zotter, who was previously with Rev1 and now has moved on to Mentor Click, which is a startup in Rev1's portfolio that is just going like gangbusters here in Columbus. And we're very happy for her and the next steps that she's taken in her career. And she has been having some technical difficulties. So please bear with us. Laura, are you there? Can you hear us?
I am here. Am I frozen? Yeah! Guys, we're struggling a little bit, but it is so nice to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. I loved my 2.5 years at Rev1, and it's always nice to see everybody again. I looked at the attendee list, and I think I know everyone on the call, so just excuse my technical challenges. Just one of those days. So let's dive in. If it freezes on me, let's just hope I look all right. Yes. So, yeah, it's been an interesting, so I've been at Mentor Click for about, I think going on 9 months now. And so I joined quickly after we raised our Series A, and we grew our team significantly across Q4. And then now with everything going on from COVID to Black Lives Matter, we're not hiring right now, but we're thinking about how do we make sure our team is engaged, not burnt out, and frankly, just not emotionally and physically exhausted. So we've focused quite a bit on employee experience. So as our CEO Phil always says, it's something we're always focused on, but I do think recent events have put more urgency on us to really develop a thoughtful set of programs to support employees. So the first of those is, now granted, we have a little bit of an advantage here because we are a mentoring software, but we really want to practice what we preach. So we're always talking about the importance of thoughtful mentoring programs for employees, the importance of professional development. And so I've worked really hard across the last few months with the team to put together a series of internal mentoring programs. So that's everything from professional development to something we're calling Click Care, which is really a way to acknowledge that folks may have additional anxiety, additional stress. Again, it's a program that we're going to continue past COVID, past this time, but it's just a way of saying, if you need to talk to somebody, we're here. And we've also put into place, and I might be skipping ahead a bit in slides, but we've also put into place a series of affinity circles, which is a feature of our platform. But basically what that means is it's a group organized around a given topic. So we really use today's climate to form those. So for example, we have one for learning at home, because we have so many employees who are not only working full-time, but they are now all of a sudden homeschooling, caring for relatives, providing education. So we have learning at home, we have health and wellness, which is all about, we already have folks that are committed to exercise and meditation and eating right. But again, in this time, how can we make sure we're meeting all of our health and wellness goals? Remote work. We're lucky in that about 60% of our team works from home 100% anyway, so it's not a huge transition, but for an extrovert like me, and clearly someone with technical difficulties, it's been a challenge. So we want to support those employees who are new to this remote arrangement. So I'll keep touching on these other things, but we can move forward in the slides. Yeah, so a big part of our culture is actually being on video cam. So whether that's, as Deannica said, for onboarding or just for check-ins, we really have a culture of showing our faces. I know when I was new, I knew some of the Mentor Click team, but we've grown a lot and I didn't know everybody, and it helped me so much to just understand everybody's body language, their face, the way they talk. I use a lot of expressions with my hands. So it just really helped to maintain that sense of being together, even though we weren't together physically. So again, it's not a requirement, but we do encourage folks, you know, on our team meetings, on affinity circle meetings, and mentoring conversations to show their webcam, even if they're in sweatpants, it's fine. Go ahead. Yeah, so we talked a little bit about this, but I wanted to touch a little bit on sort of other ways we have that team vibe, even when we're all apart. And frankly, what's interesting is that this was really important as part of my role, even before, you know, the world kind of went a little bit crazy, because 60% of our team is remote. So our office is in Columbus. So as a Columbus-based employee, I have all of these conversations with my teammates in the Columbus office that our virtual team doesn't get to have. So we set up, again, the 6 affinity circles, one of which is dedicated to remote work. We also have a series of chat groups. So whether you use Slack or G Suite chat, we have a series of chat groups dedicated to different topics, for example, recipes. So a bunch of us on the team are trying with various levels of success to bake bread. And so we're posting our recipes. It's just a fun way to stay engaged. And then we also have an every other week virtual happy hour. And that's for anyone on the team to join. We just grab a tea, grab a beer, grab a glass of wine every other Friday afternoon and hang out. The only rule is that we very much try not to talk about work. So that's been a really exciting part of our culture as well. But for all of this, whether it's affinity circles, happy hours, one thing I do want to strongly recommend is making these things optional, because I think I gathered a lot of feedback from my team members about like, how are you feeling? How are you doing? Just like very concerned about the level of exhaustion and burnout on the team. And they're saying, we love all the support systems, but be thoughtful about how you roll them out and when you roll them out. Because if you roll out 6 new programs, 8 new things, happy hour every other day, people are going to get exhausted. It can actually end up hurting the culture more than helping it. So we say to everybody, if you're going to a protest and can't make this happy hour, great. If you just need an hour to like zone out and do nothing, great. So all of these things are very much optional for the team.
Thanks, Laura. And I'm going to keep moving on, but I do want to ask that you share some of those recipes with me. We've been doing this thing, building a recipe box
Nice.
at Rev1, as well as a puzzle co-op. So we've been sharing our puzzles.
Oh, that's fun. Nice. I love that.
Okay, so moving to the next slide. And if anyone does have questions as we're talking, go ahead and send them in.
Yeah, please. So one culture initiative, and again, I joined VentureClick at a really cool and interesting time where I was employee 30 and then we quickly grew to 50. And so we kind of hit that inflection point where we're not that small anymore, and people, you can't assume everybody knows each other anymore. So I said, hey, why don't we do something kind of fun? I talked about this with Phil, our CEO. It was like, how do we do something fun to introduce team members to one another in a deeper way? And so we came up with this idea of PEEP spotlights, and it's called PEEP because my team is Peeps and Cash. Usually it's called finance and admin, but like, come on, so boring. So we're Peeps and Cash. I'm Peeps, our CFO is Cash. And so PEEP spotlights are every week on our Friday team meeting. We pick an employee who either rang in a birthday or an anniversary, and I present a whole interview with them. So there's 10 interview questions. I'm more than happy to share all of them with anybody on the call, but some of them are, what's the coolest thing you've ever done? If you could snap your fingers and become an expert in something, what would it be? What's a fear that you have? And, you know, we have employees answer all the questions. I put a cute little profile up on our internal wiki with a lot of pictures, and people just love it. It's been such a fun, cool way to get to know people. And I realized we just have so many interesting people on the team. And without these spotlights, there are some things that I would just never know about our team members. So that's been a really fun culture initiative that the whole team has liked. But again, sharing some lessons I learned is, we have, you know, I'm an open book oversharer, so I had to be told, hey, just be careful how you word some of the questions. So instead of tell me about your life outside of MentorClick, it's a subtle shift, but I think it's important. Is there anything you'd like to share about your life outside of MentorClick? Just being cognizant that there might be people along the privacy spectrums who are more here than here. So, you know, some of our folks, their PEEP spotlights are really short, and that's fine. And then some, like our sales team, it's like pages and pages. So just adjusting based on people's comfort level with sharing personal information. Yep, sorry, I didn't go in order, but yeah, so we already talked about the remote happy hour. Talking about anything
about that, Laura, actually. There's been a lot of, this is my question. There's been a lot written lately about Zoom fatigue, and I know that we're talking about, hey, let's have all these meetings on video, but how do you balance that out with that whole Zoom fatigue vibe? Because now I'm staring at my little picture up here, and I'm watching the presentation, and I've got my chat going, and my email notifications are coming in, and it's just so much, and it gets exhausting. So how are you approaching that?
That's a great question. And I'm going to answer it I'm not customer facing, but I know that comes up a lot for like our customer success team, our sales team, who could be on Zoom back to back to back to back to back, or WebEx or whatever, GoToMeeting. I think for customer facing folks, we've really counseled our team to take the client's lead. So frankly, we tend to sign in, and if we see them showing their camera, we're showing our camera. If they're not showing their camera, we're not showing our camera. And frankly, I think with how much is going on in the world in the sense of overwhelm and anxiety people feel, we've noticed people not showing their cameras recently, and so we've taken that cue. And I'd say same for our internal team. So we've had, usually our Friday team meetings are upbeat, fun, all good news. That hasn't always been the case across the last few months. It's been some hard conversations, a lot of stressful things to talk about. And so I've frankly modeled, there's some times where I don't want to be on webcam just because whether I'm emotional or overwhelmed or whatever the case may be. So I think we tend to model that for the team to say, hey, it's okay if you don't want to show your webcam. And I've noticed that Friday team meetings over the last few months, some people have dropped off. So it is part of our culture, but I think we're trying to be really extra flexible and not insisting that people always show their webcam. Because yeah, it can be a lot.
So Deonica, I have a question for you. When you're onboarding someone, and especially when you have a very small team, like in a startup environment, you might not remember that there were a lot of things you didn't know when you first started, and things like, oh, do you have access to that file folder, et cetera, et cetera. So how are you kind of evolving that onboarding process to make sure you cover all those bases? Is there like a central system you're using, et cetera?
Yeah, so I mean, here with Rev1, we are using Trello and Asana to kind of, and what I loved was that it was already set up. So a lot of the links that I needed to go to or the documents that I needed to review, it was already in place ahead of time. And because of that, I can, we discussed it, but I also was able to go back and review it. So now that I'm 3 months in, things are starting to connect, right? The dots are connecting, and I'm able to go back and be like, and look at documents and say, that's what that meant, or this is, this helps me to be able to put the pieces together. So I think ahead of time, having that one place where you have the links, you have the different applications or software that you're utilizing, and the purpose that it's being utilized for. That has been extremely helpful, and I rely on that still. My onboarding, I go back from the action items from day one. I go back and I look at those because I'm like, that's right, this makes more sense now. So I think that's definitely something that's helpful and should be a best practice going forward for anyone that's, onboarding a new hire.
Yeah, so lots of documentation that continually gets updated.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I'm an avid Asana user, so we also utilize Box for that, Trello. We've got Slack, which has pinned pieces that people need to reference. And then very email heavy culture. So I guess that's my question to both you and Laura is there's a lot of kind of unspoken culture aspects that how do you make sure that your new hires understand what those are? For example, the email thing. So I'm more likely to get an email response from somebody than I am from a Slack to them. So that's just the culture of my company, but it might be the opposite at somebody else's. So how do you convey those subtleties?
Yeah, no, I think I think it's hard to, just as you said, like someone that's been with the company for 5 or 7 years, it's hard to remember that piece and to be able to convey that, like, oh, we're heavy, email users or whatever. But I think that as the new hire starts to see, like, or the question is, what's the best way to communicate? Is it Slack? Is it email? I know for me, I love the one-offs on Slack. But for information, I like to stay consistent. If it's email, it's email. If it's Slack, it's Slack. Because I want to be able to, reference back to it and not like have to look through so many different platforms. But I think it's just describing the best way to communicate, and everybody has a different way, even within their own culture. It might be through email, but sometimes I like to just pick up the phone, especially as a new hire, and say, hey, can you explain this to me? I'm not really sure, or I'm not sure that I understand fully. So I think as long as you have that open communication with your new hire, I think the better. However they prefer, or however you prefer to communicate, just make sure that it's open and make sure that they feel like they can come to you at any point.
Yeah, Laura, same question to you.
Yeah, really, Deanna kind of hit the nail on the head. I mean, I have, so with every new hire that starts, I have the first hour with them in the morning. So it's like an overview of MentorClick. And that's one of the things I just run directly at. I just say, hey, email's best for this. If you really need something urgently, text is best. And then depending on what team they're on, I just talk about their leader style. So, name is really process driven or really detail oriented. So if you want to propose an idea, here's, you should give all of the justification. Whereas, name wants the headline, give, her 2 bullet points. So I tend to just, because I think those are the intangibles that take a really long time to learn, and people do learn over time. But yeah, I incorporate that into the first hour that I spend with new hires.
So what if you don't have a dedicated person that's able to handle talent issues and onboarding? What kind of advice would you give to that hiring manager to be able to kind of handle all of this extra stuff that goes with that onboarding process on top of their regular duties?
I can speak to that because poor Dominic, I love him. He's been with MentorClick forever, but before I came on board, Dominic was doing all onboarding in addition to contracts, procurement, information security. Like, at a typical startup, you wear a lot of hats, and as you grow, your roles narrow a bit. Honestly, my answer has changed since joining MentorClick. I think the most important advice I could give, and what I think Dominic did a great job of, is pick a few things and do them really well. So did every new hire have a box of swag on their desk on day one when we were 10 people? No. They'll forgive you. Those first people, it's just a complete, pardon my French, shit show. It's a lot going on. So I think, pick 3 things, do them really well. And what Dominic did really well was having all their technology ready to go, having all their accounts set up, and saying, I am your contact person as you onboard. So if you don't have a dedicated person, it's a ton of work. So just focus on getting the basics right is what I would say.
Great. And we do, oh, go ahead, Deanna.
No, I was just saying, I agree with Laura. Definitely. I think there's something different from the startup to the corporate, right? So corporate, you most likely can have, you have the swag already, you have somebody already ordering that. But when you're a lean workforce, right, and it's a startup, yeah, you really, you're just happy to have that person there. You're just like, I needed you, So I think, letting them know that this is what I need you for. This is what, these are the things we need to start with immediately. I want to make sure that you have everything you need, and really just having those conversations and those one-offs, like, how you feeling? Are you ready for this? Are you ready for that? And it's just really, building that relationship, I think, is so important, no matter what. If it's a startup company, corporate, whatever, just building the relationship is so important.
Yes, and that actually leads in to the next question that we received in the chat. It says, what recommendations do you have for inspiring people remotely? In person, you can look them in the eyes or get the team all together in front of you, and they can, feel that coming off of you. Whereas when you're remote, what are your tips for keeping that engagement, keeping that excitement and fervor going?
I mean, I just feel like to continuously, inspire, it's really sharing the wins. It's really sharing what challenges everybody is facing. And it's really, I really feel like, especially now in the times that we're in, the things that we're dealing with, there's so many distractions. I think it's just being real. I think it's just allowing people to have those conversations, but then also, remembering what is our mission, what is our vision. Let's stay on track to what our company does and how we can, we're solving a problem for someone. So let's remember, this is the problem that we're solving. These are our solutions, and that's why we're valuable to the community, or that's why we're valuable to our customers. And I think it's always remembering what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how you impact those that you're helping, or that you're, that you are, attending to. So each person, and sometimes we have to remind each other, right? Like, I love that you're on our team because you come with the energy, or you come, you offer things that I don't usually think about. And it's really just having those conversations, and just remembering how you impact your internal team as well as how you impact your customers, or, the community that you serve.
Yeah, all I would add to that is, I think really along the lines of what Deannika said about celebrating the wins. And then I'm trying to think through, what are those in-person inspirational moments that people aren't having right now, and how can I replace them? So, like, for example, sharing videos from our annual customer conference, which TBD if that'll be remote, if it'll be in person, but those videos are super inspiring. And I think that it's not as great as being there, but seeing people interact with the customers, seeing the customer panels, listening to customer testimonials is really inspiring. So whether that's an article or a video, just thinking about how you can simulate those kind of inspiring in-person moments.
Yeah, and I think, Gary, to chime in here, even though I'm not an expert in this, but as an employee, one of the things that I really appreciate that Rev1 does is, since we've moved to an all remote workforce, we have a once a week check-in with the entire team. And it's, hey, how are you doing? With an anonymous survey tool that says, ask your questions and we'll answer it during this time. That way people feel like they can get that feedback and really be a part of the process and have access to senior leadership and get their inputs, versus before it was you could just walk into somebody's office, and you can't do that now to get access to them. So, having regular touch points with access is important. And another thing that I think is really important to keep people engaged is keep saying thank you. We're working on we're still working, and some of us are working overtime now, even more than we were before because of the virtual hurdles we have. So what does that thank you look like? What does that acknowledgement look like for all that extra work that's going on? Make sure you're saying thank you, because you would probably give them a high five in person. What does a virtual high five look like now? Okay, so unless we have any other questions, just to wrap up, we will be sending out a recording of this video. as well as the presentation. And we are going to be back in 2 weeks on Wednesday morning at the same time, 10 a.m. So hope to see all of you there. Thank you, Laura and Deonica Snaps, for taking the time to join us and
Thanks for having me.
to this very important topic. So thank you again for your expertise and time today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Have a good day.
You too.